new season.
You're listening to Arkansas Preps Weekly on Natural State Sports, your top source for the biggest news in high school sports across Arkansas.
Here we go.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into episode 6 of Arkansas Preps Weekly. My name's Kyle Sutherland, alongside the baseball guru himself, Mr. Kevin Bohannon. Kevin, we had some upsets in both softball and baseball last week. It's going to happen this time of year. You think about prom, you think about ACT, think about injuries. That happens too. Injuries, believe it or not, still do happen. So I know that there's probably been plenty of people that have told us about those upsets multiple times, and we are listening, we are watching, but I think that probably just need to take a little bit of a chill pill for now. Let's let districts play itself out. Let's let the regular season in Class 5 and 6A play out before we make too many judgments. But you said it in the rankings this week, I believe it was. There are some teams that are going the opposite way that we would have expected, both in good and bad ways.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Kyle. And it happens this time of the year. Maybe teams peak too early. Maybe got injuries. You know, that's been the case for Batesville at the beginning of the season. Beat up bad. So now that they're getting Glasgow back, Mark Chrissy's throwing more pitches, they're going to be fine. Maumelle, Sylvan Hills beat them 10-0 after Maumelle won the first game 3-2. Sylvan Hills is a good team. They beat Little Rock Christian the previous week. So I think, you know, Maumelle's just going in the wrong direction right now. Russellville, great season so far. I think they're getting better as time goes along. Greenwood loses to Mountain Home last week, which throws a wrench in the 5A West, like I said in my notebook on the Arkansas Democrat Gazette high school baseball report. So a lot of fun. Heritage lost to Fayetteville. Moves things around a little bit. Rogers and Rogers Heritage face off this week, which will decide the 6A West. Looking forward to all the district tournaments this week and settling the score in 5A and 6A.
Before we get rolling, I want to remind everybody, if you're watching on YouTube, if you're not already, make sure and subscribe. Hit that notification button as well, so that way you're notified when we release an episode. And you can also check us out on any of the audio forums that you listen to your podcast, whether that be Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, whichever you prefer, we are there. And also, before we do get started in Class 6A, I want to talk about our newest sponsor, Athletic Field Services of Arkansas. Our friend Jeremy Rice, really appreciate him coming on board. But Athletic Field Services Service of Arkansas, they are out of Sherwood, my hometown. And a properly graded infield is not only important for player safety, but also the field's health. No company in the state can match the exceptional service and dedication like our friends at Athletic Field Service of Arkansas. From infield renovation, lip removal and edging, mound rehab, laser leveling, and much more, Jeremy Rice and his crew have you covered. Call him today at 501-416-1218. That's 501-416-1218 for your free evaluation. And you can also check them out on Facebook or see what else they have to offer by searching Athletic Field Service of Arkansas online. Athletic Field Service of Arkansas. We got the dirt on your infield. Like you said, Kevin, Rogers and Fayetteville split. Now, we did talk about some of these topics last week since we did a midweek pod, but we're going to revisit them. Rogers Heritage got the 7-2 win. Fayetteville got the 8-7 win in Game 2. But you mentioned also Heritage and Rogers. They play this week a massive series, and they are tied for the West at 11-1.
That's exactly right. Rogers lost to Springdale Harbor earlier this season, back second week of March, I believe. And then, yeah, like we talked about last week, the extra inning affair with Fayetteville over Heritage is 8-7. You know, Heritage has come from behind a lot of times this year. They did down in Gulf Shores, and they've done it in conference play. So this will, really tell. Last year, 2 years ago, Heritage upset Rogers in the 2022 playoffs. It happened. It happens all the time. Heritage has been to the semifinals the last 2 years. Rogers has had a great season and then falling kind of flat when it comes state tournament time. So I think it'll be a really good measuring stick. Rogers has been number one for a while now. Heritage can if they split, we'll see what happens in terms of how the games go. But I expect them to be low scoring. You got a lot of lefties that are going to be throwing for both teams. I just think it'll be a really good series up in Northwest Arkansas.
Anytime you've got a Bach coaching a baseball team, a high school baseball team in particular in Arkansas, you know that you're probably going to have some pretty good success. And while the Garrett Bach Garrett Bryant may not have started with a bang, it is certainly going well right now. The Hornets lead the Central race. What is it, 13 of their previous 14 that they've won? We've mentioned them over the past couple of weeks here and there. I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago when they really took that big step. But the Hornets, man, they're looking like the ones of old.
Yeah, and I just remember this. 3 of their losses are to out-of-state competition. 3, they're like Washita Christian out of Monroe, John Curtis, which is out of New Orleans,
yep,
and then Houston High School out of Memphis, Tennessee area. So, yeah, man, they're playing really good ball. They just got Gideon Moats back, too, which is going to help the staff. Eli Berry's been throwing well, Rich Sutherland, and they're just loaded. Play good defense too, and that's the thing. Their game against Southwest where they won 7-5, and I dropped them in the rankings. They've looked like a top 3 team since then. That was just kind of a bad game for those guys. But they beat Central 7-1, they beat Catholic 8-2, they beat Jonesboro 9-0. That's just going about methodically. They honestly remind me on a miniature scale of the Arkansas Razorbacks right now, and that's just how they go about doing business. They got Cabot and North Little Rock coming up after Southwest this week. So in the season with the bang, Conway, and then a intriguing game against Lake Hamilton on May the 6th before state tournament time. So Bryant's really shooting up with a bang right now. Conway beat Cabot last week 8-6. Kind of a back and forth game. Conway jumped out big. Cabot came back, and then Conway, really, and they're really young, man. You got Max Holland behind the plate. He's one of the top 2026 players in the state as a catcher. So I like Conway, the way they're going right now. Cabot's going to be in the mix right there. And then Catholic, probably going to be that 4 seed out of the Central, which is, we're going to have some really good matchups in the state tournament in 6A.
And just want to touch real quick on the West. I know that we had talked about this a little bit off air, but that we know the 6 teams. And it's going to be Rogers, Heritage, Rogers, in no particular order, just going off of what we have right now. Rogers, Heritage, Rogers, Harbor, Fayetteville, Bentonville West, and Bentonville. So like we talked about a second ago, that series this week between Rogers, Heritage, and Rogers will tell a lot for the top 2 seeds, but you just never know in the West with all that depth.
That's right. Fayetteville and Harbor are going to be 3 and 4 either way right there. They split this season. And Bentonville West is probably going to be the 5 if everything works out right, and Bentonville is 6. Bentonville's a dangerous 6 seed. They have some injuries, which has hurt them a little bit this year. But they play this week. I think if Bentonville could be the 5 or 6, but that's how they're grouped right now. We know the 6 teams. It's just how are they going to play out 1, 2, 3, or 4, 5, and 6.
And then finally down, like we just started. Like I'm starting 1A. And 5A, down in Class 5A. We want to talk about Valley View. We've got to start them off, but we really have to this week because about an hour before we started recording, we found out by what you had tweeted that Baseball America, they have Slade Caldwell is going to the Dodgers at 23rd. I think that's about as high. Maybe 21st is the highest that I've personally seen him, but he's staying right there in that first round. So it's, unless something crazy happens, it's looking like that he's going to be there when the draft happens in June.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we've seen all along in games that I've been to. I saw the Dodgers, I saw the Mariners. Mariners are at 15. I think that's his ceiling right there. Seeing a lot of those between 15 and 28, which is the back half of the first round. His name pop up just about everywhere between those 14, 15 teams. And that's not surprising. He's having a great year. They smoked Greene County Tech last week, 10-0, 10-0. It was one of the most anticlimactic series between the first and second place team in the conference. So that's going to work out. Marion can get the 2 seed if they take care of business against Greene County Tech. And then Batesville is likely going to be that 4 seed after beating Searcy. So we got the 4 in the East. like I mentioned earlier, Sylvan Hills beating Maumelle, that puts them Maumelle and Little Rock Christian in a tie again. All right. Sylvan Hills having beat both of them now. So next week, Little Rock Christian and Maumelle will play for that 5A Central. Lake Hamilton, man, I like that team. We talked about Easton Hurley last week. He's 7-0. They beat Lakeside 3-0 the other day. I got to talk to Coach Matt Wiggin for a little bit, and I've known Coach Wiggin for a while now. Back to his time at Sheridan, he was there from 2010 to 2015. Then moved to Malvern between 16 and 19, and finally to Lake Hamilton. And 2020 was the first year with the COVID year. He's like, man, we got a couple lefties, Easton Hurley being one of them. Easton has done really good on the mound this year, being 7-0. But he was their starting center fielder since he was a freshman and their leadoff hitter. And he hadn't been able to hit this year. So the other day was his first in-game action at the plate. He went 2 for 4 in that Lakeside game. So that just adds another component to a team that's 19-2. I moved him up to number 3 this week. Probably should have had him there earlier. But, Greenwood had been playing well, but slipped up against Mountain Home. Lake Hamilton's 2 games clear right now with 3 games left. They win 1, they'll at least clinch a tie. They win 2, which I think they will. They're going to be conference champions of the 5A South, which, looking back historically, is something that you wouldn't think could happen with Arkansas High, Benton, Sheridan, Lakeside. Conference is just loaded. So kudos to Coach Matthew Wiggin and, all the players in Percy, Arkansas right now. They're having a great season.
And I want to go back to, you mentioned Greenwood and some things that are going on in the West. I want to go back there in a second. But first off, I do want to stay in the East because I know that there was a very controversial game with Collierville, Tennessee, that Collierville, they won 2-1. And then also this was right after GCT, that Valley View had beaten GCT pretty handily in 2 games, combined 20-0. But, Kevin, and obviously – you have been an ump in many occasions, and I'm a known official apologist. I typically, in most cases, defend them, and I still do. I'm very appreciative of what they do. But on the softball side of things, I've seen so many things in the college game lately that it made me tweet about it. I think that's probably the first time I've ever tweeted about officials, no lie, or like any kind of official. Well, that was really tough, what happened against Valley View and Collierville. I'll go ahead and let you discuss it.
So, I'm Kyle. I called high school baseball before I got into media. Some of that overlapped, which caused me to pick one or the other. 2018 was the last time I officiated a high school baseball game. So, and it was the 2019 4A state tournament at Southside Batesville. So, as I got into the media, I still have those really good relationships with umpires at the highest level in this state. I still talk to a lot of assignments. The guys send me scores after the game. The guy that was on the plate in the Conway-Cabot game, he sent me the score right after. So I still talk to these guys about a lot of it goes on. And Troy Sutherland, no relation to Kyle, which we've talked about on this show before, was at the game for perfect game. Yeah, he's a really big Slade Caldwell fan, which, who's not right now? Myself included. And he's like, and he said, second at bat, Slade, Collierville's throwing a lefty, throws a big sweeping breaking ball. And the catcher literally catches it in the right-handed batter's box. Now, I know a lot of our listeners, viewers may be saying, well, Kevin, it's where it crosses the plate. Yes and no. Okay, so let's get real about this for a minute. A high school kid is not going to have that much break to where it crosses the zone and then is in the right-handed batter's box. He didn't get thrown out. He didn't, he handled himself really well. I posted a video of his first at-bat where the kid threw a breaking ball, and the catcher literally turns his body to catch it at Slade's ankles. And people said, well, it crossed at his knees. And you don't really know that. Perception and how a camera looks is not where the pitch actually was. You see that on TV every weekend. So they struck out 15 times. That is uncalled for. They struck out at twice an inning because the game went 8 innings. So 15 strikeouts. And I asked Coach Josh Elson afterwards. I had to ask him. I said, how many of the 15 strikeouts were caught looking backwards K. He said, "Man, I don't even know. It was just bad." He said, "I'm surprised you didn't get thrown out." He said, "I tried, but the guy wouldn't even run me." So I mean, that's just kind of funny that Josh said that, because Josh is really low key and really laid back. So they lost 2-1. That doesn't matter to me at the end of the day. Collierville's a program. I've coached some kids out of there. Jack Hardy, that went to Ole Miss, is Minnesota Twins organization right now. Mitch Austin went to Southwest Tennessee Community College. They've got D1 guys every year, but Valley View is better than them. And unfortunately, they went to Collierville, and I mean, it was just the biggest homer job that I've ever seen. I didn't watch the whole game. It was bad.
We can say that because that's a out-of-state school that has nothing to do with anything with Arkansas. So that's what we love about it. But, yeah, real tough. And I know it caused some debate. It caused some debate on Twitter, and rightfully so. I mean, you're in a position probably more so than 99%. I don't know, not 99, but 90+% of Arkansas to be able to talk about that, because you've worn both hats. You've worn the media hat. You've worn the ump hat. So that's why I wanted to get you to explain that, just because, look, I mean, everybody's going to have their opinion. But, again, I think yours is pretty warranted. So going over to the West, the Mountain Home sweep of Greenwood, that was a big benefit to Russellville. Now, if I'm not mistaken, so Greenbrier and Russellville are tied for first. I think Greenbrier has the tiebreaker, correct? I think
they split.
They split, but I think Greenbrier beat them by like 3 runs as opposed to the Russellville one, something like that. But they're tied at the first, tied for first place.
Yeah, it was 4-0 versus 3-2 or something like that. Yeah,
okay,
so you're right.
Gotcha. And then so Greenwood stands alone at third, a game back, and then you've got Van Buren and Mountain Home there. Now, Mountain Home and Van Buren will play the final series, if I'm not mistaken, the final 5A West series of the regular season before the 5A state tournament gets going. So that right there, Russellville, they might be sending a Christmas card to the Mountain Home Bombers when it's all said and done.
That's right. And look, this is nothing against the way, like I said, Russellville's ranked this week, moved them up. I got 3 teams in the 5A West that are ranked. Is that, are 3 teams from the 5A West the top 7 teams in the state right now? They are. But they got Greenbrier's doing really well with Zachary on them. I like their makeup. Garrett Bach left that situation. He left them in a good spot, even though that they ran through coaches quite a bit over the last 4 years with, Chad Cope leaving and going to North Little Rock. And then they brought in Andrew Roberson, who's a really good football coach, really good baseball coach. I've known Andrew for, 15 years now. Then Garrett Bach stepping in. So really good situation. They play a good brand of ball up there. So, they got a chance to, if they can sweep Greenwood, get the 1 seed and keep the 1 seed. Now, if they split, Russellville's schedule is a little easier now because they've already played Greenwood. They've already played Greenbrier. They take care of business. They're going to be good. Tristan Newberry, the lefty, Russ Martin, the righty. So that puts Russellville in a really good situation. So let's look ahead a little bit here, Kyle. So the West is matched up with the South in the playoffs this year in 5A. Central faces the East. 5A West, Russellville gets the 1. Who's going to be the 4 out of the South? The potential candidates are right now Sheridan, which would be a really good matchup in round 1, Russellville and Sheridan. But yeah, Russ Martin's throwing better lately. He's pitching better lately. He got roughed up, some earlier this year. Come in some save situations. Peyton Kaufman is up to 6 home runs now, I believe. So yeah, they got a good group up there, and Coach McCarley's done a great job with them this year. Of course, having Russ Martin moved in elevated them a little bit. We thought at the beginning of the season, like, look, this is going to be a team to watch. Let's see how they do. But, don't count Greenwood out. They won the conference title last year after beating Greenbrier that last week. Grant Carnes had his worst outing of the year. That stuff happens right now. How far they go in the state tournament will be determined by how well Austin Mitchell throws, in my opinion. So if they're the 2, they could be mixed up with Benton in round 1. Talk about a really good matchup, man. A Greenwood-Benton first-round matchup, that would be something to look at. So still a little bit to figure out, but Russellville's got to like where they're sitting right now.
And we've had a lot of headlines in Class 5A. I want to touch on one more before we head down. BB has really and quietly over the past, I guess maybe since the year started, they've made some big time moves. Now they made a big move in the girls coaching hire. They made a big move recently with the boys coaching hire, and I think that they made maybe the most underrated coaching hire with football and Justin Bigham. You think about just the amount of coaches around the state that have raved about him. Well, they've already had an established softball program for a while, and things are going really well for them in baseball, as we can just talk about 4 sports alone here. But they've won 5 consecutive. And you look at most of those, and you're like, okay, cool. That's what you're supposed to do. But that 9-0 win over Harding Academy, 3A or not, just thinking about what Harding Academy has been able to do, the 3-time defending state champion, they're also number 1 ranked, have been all season. Just that dynasty that they have going there, 9-0, regardless of what classification, over a team that talented is pretty impressive.
That's exactly right. And beat Sylvan Hills 1-0. And that was really kind of the thing that got me looking like, okay, that possibly is a 3 seed. So that sets up well for them. I got to pay attention more to them now. That's the thing. These teams start performing well while I try to look at everybody across the board. And as well as I do, on game days with our game changer, the way we have it set up as media, we'll get 100 notifications, and we get those top teams that are in there. And they're just, they've just been playing good ball, kept coming. So 16-7 right now, 7-3 in conference. That sets up really well for them to get in as a playoff team, and that's somewhere they haven't been in a while since our man Marshall Denton, was there back in the heyday, back in the 2015, 2014, 15, 16.
Completely forgot about it. Is it Angus that they call him? Marshall Angus Denton? Yeah, remember him well.
Yeah, Marshall Angus Denton, yeah.
Down in Class 4A, I'd say Region 1 and Region 7 were probably the craziest this year. Well, we'll start in Region 1.
Yeah.
With all of the depth of that conference, I don't know that we would have expected Shiloh Christian would have come out on top. Mainly, I know that they have a really big team. They've got a lot. I mean, I can't even remember the amount that came out. So you got to imagine, out of how big their team is, that they'd probably find some players. But with what they endured with the coaching search and just, some of the things that went with that, and for them to be 8-0 in April, to win the 4A1 regular season conference title, those Saints are really one to watch. That's a school that is definitely used to winning. But man, I'll tell you, I can't tip my hat enough for the job that Jamie Beers has done there, and again, against some really tough situations.
Yeah, when you lose your head coach in December, I believe it was, and at the time, the outlet we were with, we broke the news, and got a little pushback from it because of the circumstances that surrounded it, but that's our job as journalists, and journalists, media professionals that cover in a sport, is to report the news, good and bad. So we did. And like you said, what Jamie Beers is nothing short of outstanding. Brock Billingsley, their catcher, going to MIT to play baseball. Using Brock as an example, he got hurt last year, came back, and using him as an example of people players that overcome adversity and do big things in big situations. They lost to P. Ridge, and at that point, they lost 5-3. That was their last loss. And I said, man, I think they're too young. I think they're a year away, but everything's set up for the future with Coach Gum. They said, forget that. We're just going to keep rolling right along. And next thing you know, they were in a tie, and they were in the top 2. Then they just kept taking care of business. And they beat everybody else. Beat Gravett, beat Huntsville, beat Farmington, beat Prairie Grove. Those were the top, 4 teams that we've had, throughout the year. Next thing you know, Huntsville's the 6th seed, and they get to play in for the conference tournament. Now, Prairie Grove, if I'm not mistaken, and Shiloh, I have to go back and look. We got the district tournament brackets. Those are the top 2 teams. So in district tournaments, 4A through 1A, the top 2 teams are guaranteed to go to the regional. That's your gift if you play a conference tournament, but you finished 1 or 2 in the regular season. It's a stair-step bracket. So the team gets beat. You just have buys. So the 3 and the 4 seed will have to win 1 game to guarantee going to the regional tournament. But, I can't say enough good things about those guys and, what they've done. going back, talk about this for a sec, Kyle. Going back to football season, a lot of people may have this preconceived notion of the kids at Shiloh, but it's a great group of young men. They're playing their tails off this year, and they're a dark horse right now in that 4A that has shown anything can happen.
And as anything can happen, the big news out of the South was out of the madness, and I think chaos is a perfect word for the 4A7, because it was like you would send me these scores each week. This team would have a great week, then they'd have a bad week. Then it would just be all over the place. Well, Nashville, the Scrappers, they finished 2-0 and won the 4A7 regular season title. So it's going to be interesting now. Now, does 4A7 baseball have district, because softball does not?
They don't.
They don't. Okay, so
they do have to beat. Yeah.
Okay.
They do have to beat at least Camden or Ashdown this week. So they do a double round robin.
Okay, so they're one of those that does the double round robin, and that's the crazy thing is this would be one of those situations when we've talked about this many times. One team would win the regular season, one team would win district, one team will win out of the conference, of course, and then win regional, and then maybe somebody from else would win state that didn't win one of the previous ones. So, I'm not sitting here predicting that the state champion out of 4A is going to be from the 4A7 or South Arkansas in general. I think that you certainly got to give Lone Oak its due until somebody knocks them off, but also Robinson and Lone Oak split, something else that we did talk about. I actually think we talked about game one, and then that second game was the day that we recorded. But you're right. So Lone Oak, Robinson lost the first game 2-1. Then they came back and won the second one 5-4. So about where you thought those games would be being separated by a run each.
Yeah, and we'll start there. Last year, game one, Logan Eichler didn't. He was a freshman at the time, didn't have his stuff. They threw Spencer Watson, Lone Oak's bats. They were just really hot at that time. Got them a win. Second game, a little bit closer. Robinson lost 1-0, which let's fast forward to this year. Tuesday, the weather was terrible last week. On Tuesday, teams were trying to get it in. If you had turf, you played. If you didn't, you were SOS. 2-1 ball game. Still Eves shoved through no-hitter. Jackson came in and finished it off. So they no-hit those guys. And, Logan Eichler threw well. 2-1 loss. Looked good. Second game, 1-0. Or 5-4. Excuse me. I had flashback to last year. 5-4 wins. So where does that put us? Okay, the last couple of weeks said, look, Lone Oak is vulnerable. They're more vulnerable now than they were last year. Why is it? Teams got better. Teams have kind of figured out. We can hit still a little bit. I think Jacksonville's still the wild card because still baseball in Arkansas, nobody hits lefties really well. So I think Lone Oak still has an upper hand. Morrilton, 21-2. Just rolling through everybody right now. See how they do against the 1-4A next week in regionals. I think they're going to be okay. But Brooklyn's still playing good ball, but Nashville, they beat Magnolia. This week against Ashdown's huge because they got to overcome that earlier loss of the season. That was a big 4-3 letdown by those guys. So if they can beat Camden, they'll at least get a share of the conference title, which puts them in the regional. Ashdown's got their work cut out for them because that loss to the Queen earlier this season. They may be on the outside looking in at the end of the day.
And before we head down to 3A, I want to remind you real quick about our friends at Athletic Field Service of Arkansas. A properly graded infield is not only important for player safety, but also a field's health. No company in the state can match the exceptional service and dedication like our friends at Arkansas Field Service of Arkansas and Sherwood. From infield renovation, lip removal and edging, mound rehab, laser leveling, and much more, Jeremy Rice and his crew have you covered. Call Jeremy at 501-416-1218. That's 501-416-1218 for your free evaluation. And check them out on Facebook or see what else they have to offer by searching Athletic Field Service of Arkansas online. Athletic Field Service of Arkansas, we got the dirt on your infield. And I'm going to throw this because it's the first time in 4 attempts that I've actually read it perfectly. You know me, Kevin. It takes me about 2 or 3 times to get something right. So I'm just going to throw this bad boy across the room and celebrate for a second. And while I do that, going to head down to 3A. Walnut Ridge, they leave no doubt. They left no doubt. This was a team that we've been talking about for a long time. I mean, Jared, we're doing it like we're doing softball. Here I am bragging on myself, and I call you the wrong name. Cabo, they lost to Riverside 3-2, then beat was it Tuckerman and Melbourne that they beat this? Yeah, so Tuckerman and Melbourne. And then also Gosnell, another NEA team that we've talked about a lot. They lost 3 straight, obviously had something to prove. They thumped Harrisburg and Manila, and then they survived a 9-8 matchup against Rivercrest. So Walnut Ridge, Gosnell will start up there in NEA. They just continue, those two teams do, to live up to the hype.
Yeah, Caden Martin, leadoff hitter, shortstop, playing well. Belcher still rolling along. UK commit, like we said, he changed Tedder, rolling along. It's a good team. They're playing good ball, man. 22-4, nothing to stick at. I think their region is going to be tough for those guys, but I think they're going to be okay. Now, Gosnell Rivercrest was one of the ugliest games you may have ever seen. Rivercrest committed 6 errors, had 1 hit, and was up 6-1. Gosnell came back. Rivercrest came back. Gosnell ended up winning the game. So they were 18 walks, 8 errors in the game. But at the end of the day, what is it Nolan Richardson said? A rickety ride is better than a smooth walk any day of the week. So that's exactly what that was. But yeah, Gosnell 19-5. Taking care of business against Harrisburg was really big for them. So they're going to clinch the conference title. They win that. But yeah, Walnut Ridge left no doubt. Melbourne, are they going to be good enough for one game and then out? Last year they got beaten in the first round by CAC. It could happen again this year. So Harding Academy, good week. Lost to BB, lost to Lone Oak. So they did lose 2 games, but those are 2 really good teams. Bentley Hawks threw really well in that game against Lone Oak. That was a really good pitching matchup between Tripp Sullivan for Lone Oak and Bentley Hawks for Harding Academy. Harding, right now still head and shoulders above everybody else. Going down to South Arkansas, Haskell Harmony Grove, they've been a team that I've kept my eye on all year. Started out kind of slow against some higher class teams. They did lose to the HGOC, Harmony Grove, Ouachita County. They've won everything since. So conference title comes on the line with them and Genoa Central. They beat them 1-0. So Harmony Grove gets to boost into the rankings this week, and Genoa will slide down a little bit. Those guys will own the regional tournament again because they're matched up with the 8-3A, which has DeWitt, Harmony Grove, Ouachita County, which is on top of the conference right now. Maybe Drew Central, Smackover's in there as well. Smackover beat DeWitt last week. So those teams, I like the way they set up for Harmony Grove from Haskell and Genoa to make it to the regional, to make it to the state tournament out of that region. Elkins, 5th straight year, 20+ wins for that program. That Hunter Corbell's just a great job. His first head coaching job. He's one of those coaches that will be highly sought after for any big jobs that come open this year. It's been a big job coming open. Farmington will need a new football coach, which is nuts to think about. J.R. Eldridge not coaching high school football in Arkansas. So, talk about young coaches that could fill, voids in baseball. Hunter Corbell is one of those guys. Will he move on? It's going to have to be for the right situation. He loves that town. He loves the roots that he's put down. So, Elkins, they'll be matched up. The 1 is matched up with the 4, which will be the Boonville Bearcats that won the 4-3A. Just a lot to figure out when we get to regional tournament time. That's when you start seeing some of the upsets, and some of the teams that you've had ranked throughout the season may not make it into the tournament.
And then down in Class 2A, Riverside, they seem like the real deal. They pretty much proved it time in and time out. It's kind of like their softball team has done over the past 2 seasons. But really excluding that 1-0 loss to Woodlawn, which nothing to shake a stick at all, they still remain undefeated against 2A competition and don't look like they're slowing down.
That's exactly right. They lost to Paragould 3-0. They lost to Gosnell maybe 2-0, something like that. They were shut out. But yeah, 6-0 win last week. Just took care of business against Rector. It was 6-0, 6-0. So Zayden scored another game for the sophomore. Just goes out there and shoves. So I talked to Coach Matt Snyder from Valley View, and he's like, man, they got arms for days. He said, anybody can beat Woodlawn. It's going to be Riverside. And you've seen it now, man. They beat Walnut Ridge. They just keep going out there and rolling. So Riverside and Woodlawn have really separated themselves. Now, Woodlawn does have Jaden Woolmuth, their catcher, senior catcher. He's injured right now. They're going to try to get him back. He's got a hamate injury and try to get him back for postseason. They kind of did that, last year. They had one of their star players out, got back to the regional, and ended up playing the state tournament. So looking at 2A, Kyle, look at the records, man. That is just unbelievable. These teams that have, played all year long. Woodlawn, 25-1. Riverside, 22-3. McCrory, 13-2. They're going to win the 6-2A. Mansfield, 12-2, who plays Bigelow today, 12-1 record on the year, number 6. And then Greenland, 17-5. So, a lot of these teams, they've played up in competition, up in class all year long, and taking care of business where they needed to in conference play. Regionals is where we start to see heads button again. So, looking for like a Mansfield-Greenland type battle in the regional tournament would be awesome. Cotter is a team to look out for. They've, won 11 straight now that I think of it. Tied with Greenland. Greenland got the benefit of the tiebreaker to win the regular season. Wednesday, they start their conference tournament. So Greenland and Cotter will get to possibly rematch again. Southside B Branch, they're on the outside looking in this week. They won their conference. They're matched up with the Bigelow Conference for regionals. And, Southside B Branch, Cedar Ridge is another team from that conference. Cedar Ridge lost to Quitman. That was kind of a head scratcher right there. Kind of took me back a little bit because Cedar Ridge has been up and down this year. They made the semifinals last year, but they'll be okay if they get the right draw for the regionals. They'll be okay to the state.
And I know that one of the biggest topics was after a 5-0 start, Palestine Wheatley really since spring break has teetered down. And last year, they just continued to prove people wrong. And then, like I just said a second ago, had a really strong start. So is it injuries? What are some things maybe you can pinpoint about what's going on there post-spring break?
I haven't heard of any injuries, and I've reached out. They've lost 4 of their last 5. Now, one of those losses was to Shannon, which was a 9-8 loss, which is a good loss. But, going back to April the 3rd, they lost 1-0 to McCrory. They beat England, then they lost 7-1 last week to McCrory, and then Carlisle. That was the big loss that really kind of knocked them over the edge right there. They lost 4-1, and nothing against Carlisle. They got some good guys on that team. Jonathan Pickard Jr., Holden Jones, Dalton Ward. They're good 2A players that are going to play in college. So, they're just rolling in the wrong direction right now. They're still young. Last year they go to the state finals with starting not a one senior. So I think bigger things out there are going to be all right. Jacob Hickman's still going to be on the mound for them, but they got some work to do. Possibly the 3 seed going into regional play, which, could set up things a little bit tougher for them.
And last but certainly not least, in Class 1A, it's really just about more of the same. Once you get to this year and just the fact that it's usually been the Taylor show for baseball and softball, as we always say. We talk about in 5A Valley View, we talk about Woodlawn in 2A, which I know we didn't talk about Woodlawn a whole lot this week, but 1A, that's what it is. It's been the Taylor show until somebody proves something different. But I think probably the only noticeable one was, did Scranton move in from the outside looking in to the rankings? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, 12-4 on the year. They've shown, really well in last year in the conference for regional and get the state. So I think Scranton, the Rock, worthy of that. North Fork, they finished 3rd in the Big 2 1A conference behind Viola and Westside Greers Ferry. So they'll play their conference tournament, win a game, get to regional. Then they'll get to go up against the big boys. But, going back to Taylor real quick, let's go through their scores real quick in the month of April, Kyle. 27-5, 19-2, 22-2, 10-0, 19-0, and then last Friday they beat Junction City 6-2. So, Taylor rolling off 3 of their 4 losses to out-of-state teams. Murfreesboro from Class 2A was their only in-state loss. Yeah, man, they just and a lot of 1A, man, with everybody having at least one good pitcher, the top teams at least, how it stacks up in, the draw. Last year we got Nemo and Taylor in a quarterfinal matchup after 2 years ago they faced each other in the state final. So Mount Ida, they won their conference. Mineral Springs finished second down there. Auburn looking good right now. They lost some games early to higher class teams. Not really, 1A, 2A teams didn't really do too bad against. So Norfolk, they're going to have a chance. Nemo Vista as a 2 seed, but St. Joe's keeps rolling along. They thumping everybody right now. They're 16-3 on the year. But man, inside Gris Ferry, they seem to be the team that may push Taylor, depending on the draw that they get. This could be Shane Davis's year to go all the way for the Eagles.
If you like what you've been listening to or watching, make sure you subscribe on YouTube, hit that notification button so you know when we release an episode, and then make sure to subscribe and review on the audio platforms as well, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, whichever you listen to us on. But also got plenty of advertising opportunities. At least I'll wait until the end of the show until I can't talk. But I talked about right. I talked about Athletic Field Service of Arkansas, and we're very happy to have them on board. Also want to give a shout-out to TeamFunded, our guy Jay Keith, and also Chasen Bowman, coaches who are running this 100% app-based, basically a fundraiser. It's to make your life easier as a coach, and both Chasen and Jay Keith have plenty of coaching experience, so they know the things that you deal with on a daily basis. And there's all kinds of information on our Facebook page and Twitter. Just go to Natural State Sports, and then you can find out all about it, or just visit teamfunded.com to figure out how they can help you today. And one more thing that I wanted to mention before we hop off, Kevin, I'm sure you've gotten plenty of questions. I have. What is next after this school year? I don't know, but I'll tell you, we're not going to stop, because here's the deal. For the past 2 weeks, we have basically just flied by the seat of our pants, and things have worked out. That's kind of how my media – I can't speak for Kevin, but that's how my media career's been. It's pretty much been one thing after another, and I've just worked it out, and things have been fine. So we're just worried about getting through this school year right now, and we're going to. We're a few weeks out. We've been just – things have been going great since we've been with the Natural State Sports, so – we're not going anywhere. And if you want to check it out, you can go to our rankings. That's where we put those on naturalstatesports.com, and we've got plenty more in the pipeline. So, Kevin, unless you got anything else, we'll go ahead and hang this baby up, and then we'll get going ready for regional previews.
Yeah, and regional previews coming up. We'll have a little bit more written content coming out, because I know Kyle and myself are really kind of itching. We're having, writing withdrawals, because we haven't been putting that out. And you see Kyle's eyes getting really big, like silver dollar size. But yeah, we're going to get that stuff out there. So we're going to have previews for regionals, previews for state coming up. Arkansas Democrat Gazette we've been fortunate enough to be picked up by those guys for baseball and softball. Kyle's doing some game reports for them. I'll have a weekly notebook. So you'll have some coverage there as well. We just want to get as much content as we can out there. And I'm kind of like Kyle. Yeah, this is my second career, but my day job that I say allows me to put a lot of time, just like if this was just my regular job. So I've been very fortunate. Kyle and I took two different paths to get where we're at, but the mission is the same. And they always say like-minded people with the same goal work really well together, and that's why we've had a good partnership for the last 4 years now. So. Like you said, we're going to keep it going. We've had a great time. The guys at Natural State Sports have done great. Will and Steve, those guys, they do a great broadcast, for the Pulaski County Special School District. They've got some big things coming up that, we'll be a part of as well. But I'm really looking forward to the end of the season right here. I'll actually get to call some state finals again for PBS Sports for Bobby Swafford. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, I've got all kinds of stuff going on for multiple different outlets. So we're very blessed to promote this game and more, or I guess in the same way for multiple different outlets. But naturalstatesports.com, go check out our rankings for this week. Those are live, both the softball and baseball, the team-funded softball and baseball Super 7 rankings. So naturalstatesports.com is where it's at. Arkansas Preps Weekly. Subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. And for Kevin Bohannon, my name is Kyle Sutherland. We will catch you next week.